Dan RadioStyle, hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Been doing all this amazing manifestation work. Got so much effort put into it. How do I know what the next step is? So many of us get stuck in this paradigm, right? And then we start to panic, we start to think too much, we start wondering about things that we probably shouldn't wonder about. We let our minds kind of wander. But there's kind of a way to help dial that in a little bit. It's a very powerful approach and makes a big difference. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of people do, I'm just going to start with a little caveat. Many of us that are doing the manifestation process are trying to manifest something that literally will fall in our lap. Now, to a point, yes, you can do that. But we're going to use a hyperbolic example. Trying to manifest a boyfriend into my life or a girlfriend into my life, and I literally want them to knock on my front door. So that's what I'm trying to manifest. The person I'm interested in knocking, knock, 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 right on my old front door, and then I open it up. Problem is, even though you've gotten it that far and you've had it fall into your lap, essentially, you still have to do something once they're in front of you. Conversation. Then someone between the two of you has to get the courage to ask out for the next date or ask for a phone number or ask if there's some way I can see you again or some way to expand it. Doing always comes into play. When it comes to jobs, you're going to have to interview, you're going to have to get clothes, right? So there's a number of things that we have to think about. We've got to learn to balance the doing and the receiving. Now, the general rule of thumb that I use, about 50% of the time. About half the time you can be doing, about half the time you should be receiving. You really don't want either one of them to get out of balance. You know, is it 55%, 45%? All right, no big deal. But is it 75% doing, 25% receiving? You're probably a little out of balance. You've maybe got someone that's pushing you away right now because there's too much doing. You need to sit back sometimes and let things happen. And to the contrary, if you're sitting back waiting and nothing's going on, you're not leaving the house, nothing's really happening, maybe you need to leave the house. Maybe you should go down to the coffee shop where this person may show up. Or maybe you need to go down to that place where you turned in your resume and just say, hey, I turned in a resume a couple weeks ago. I don't know, interested to see if you guys maybe got a hold of it. I'd certainly like to work here. So I just thought I would stop by and, see what's going on. And sometimes just the very act of doing that, suddenly HR walks out, they see your face, they start to get to know you, your resume gets pulled up on top. So the very act of, again, doing something oftentimes will make all the difference in the world. So a lot of us talk about inspired action and all that kind of stuff. Basically, that's kind of what this comes down to. The big thing that we really want to do is we want to listen to our desires, our heart's desires, and the thing that kind of tugs at you and pulls at you. Goddard talks about desires as being gifts from God. I absolutely agree with that. The desire is the gift from our higher self, source, universe, God, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah. It is that gift from that part of ourselves, the I am part of ourselves, the consciousness part of ourselves, the God part of ourselves. It is a message from there. And again, as I've said before, messages that you can feel are messages from the soul. Messages that are more physical, symbols, signs, yada, yada, are kind of more messages from, higher self, everything else. But a lot of the times when it's a feeling thing, when you don't really have any evidence to go on, but you feel something, that's more of a soul language. And your soul's going to lead you by the desires that you have. And since they're gifts from God, we need to learn to listen to them. And a lot of the times desires pop up because we're doing all this manifestation work, right? We're creating this imagery in our mind. We're actually experiencing it as though it is happening right now. We get this amazing feeling as we raise our consciousness to the place where this already exists. And from that place, oftentimes you're going to get some desires about different things that you're going to want to do, different places you might want to go, different adventures that you may want to go on or need to go on. When it comes down to, say, for example, wealth, maybe you're trying to manifest more wealth in your life. What does that really mean? What do you really need to do, right? What is wealth? Are you looking for maybe more income? Are we having to maybe enhance our job? Are we maybe going to need to look at possibly going to school and further our education? Are we looking at possibly picking up some additional skills, maybe some certifications? Are we looking at maybe having to buy lotto tickets? Like, that's the way we plan on enhancing our wealth. All right, well, are we going out and buying at least one lottery ticket for the lotto? Are we playing a part in this desire. We want to have more wealth. What are some of the things that are popping up to you? Well, I'd like to work in a different way. Okay, that's one way you could do it. Let's start thinking about what it is that you enjoy from a work perspective. Or are we trying to think of maybe different avenues that we can bring wealth in? Well, maybe, YouTube, maybe some of the other avenues that we can come with that, right? There's a number of things. You have to start thinking about it and see what internally becomes desirous, something that's going to light the way for you, something that's going to be like, hey, this is probably something you should look at doing, and you will now know, hey, what's a good step I can move forward? What about love? Trying to manifest love in your life. What are some of the experiences that we're going to be drawn to when it comes to love, right? I'm trying to get more love into my life, so I might have a desire to maybe reach out. I might have a desire maybe to join a dating app. I might have a desire to hang out someplace where I know a certain somebody tends to show up, and maybe I'll start hanging out there on a somewhat regular basis, hoping to bump into them. I'm going to put myself in a place where I know it becomes easier to manifest. And your desires are going to help you with that. You're sitting there wondering about love. Well, I want to figure out how I can see Paul. And then it'll kind of hit you like, ooh, Paul kind of does tend to hang out at that one burger place or whatever down the road. I feel like it was 1950s, right? The burger shop and getting a shake and a malt, right? Like whatever, but right? He hangs out at that one coffee shop. Let's go down there and check it out. You're going to get that desire inside. You're going to get that, what should I do? You're going to feel it. And that desire, again, is the gift from God. You're creating a manifestation. There may be a couple issues, problems, things, steps, whatever. And you need to figure out a way how to tune into that so you know which ways you can step forward. Career's another good one. A lot of us, this is one of the worst things about when you first start college, for any of you that are out there in that age group or just barely past it or past it at all. One of the painful parts about college is you are 19 years old, 18 years old, and you're expected to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. Wow, that's a daunting and very difficult thing to figure out. But one of the most key ingredients to that whole process is figuring out what you enjoy. Not just figuring out what you're good at, because sometimes what you're good at is not necessarily something that brings you a lot of joy, or maybe not necessarily something that you want to capitalize on. Example for me, kind of funny, but I tested really high like I would be a good psychologist when I was younger. And the last thing I wanted to do was to listen to people's problems, is what I told myself back in high school after taking the test and finding out that I scored I'd be really good at that. I'm like, no, don't want to do it. I like science and other stuff and whatever. Long story short, here I am helping people and enjoying it, except I'm not a shrink. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't want to be one of those. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I enjoy how I'm helping people. And I found this through desires. I desired radio. I kind of fell into that, the way that sort of manifested for me. Then I fell into some voiceover work. Then I fell into the company I'm working for now. Then I fell into all these things just started to happen as I set my intention, as I set my goal for my life, as I started manifesting success in my life. These things began to unfold. Certain desires began to happen. Every once in a while, I'll just look left and be like, what's behind this door, right? And that's what we do, and that's how we get to the goal. So a lot of us are at that place where we're not sure what to do next. We're not sure how to interact with ourselves. We're not sure what should I do to get me one step closer, right? We talk about the stepping stones to your dream. What's one way I can get one step closer to my dream? Go inside, meditate, listen to that desire inside. Try to do it from a cleaner place. Like I said, after a meditation, just calm your mind a little bit. Try to get away from the screaming kids, or try to get away from the stress of work, or try to get away from whatever it is, your little Calgon moment maybe, or your bubble bath, wherever you can have your moment of free calmness, where you can get yourself into that right place. And see what comes out. See what bubbles up. See what comes from your heart. And that's going to give you the indication that what you would like to do. There's a very famous thing called the Temple of Delphi. And one of the big things that came out of that, or it's written on the front of it anyways, and it's written in Latin, of course, and I do not speak Latin. I don't even sound it out well. But it basically says, know thyself. One of the largest things that we can do to help ourselves manifest our dreams is to know ourselves, know how we work, know how our minds work, know our weaknesses, know our strengths. Know you, know who you are. And this journey becomes so much easier for you. So you got to know who you are, listen to your desires, and intentionally choose the future you would like to have. And then raise your consciousness to it and kind of let that tsunami raise you up with it. It'll happen in its time. It'll happen exactly as fast as it should. But it's going to rise up and swell up, and it'll take you with it. And just go with it. Don't fight it. Don't argue it, but go with it. And along the way, you're going to get some desires to make some decisions, to look behind doors, to look under mats, to figure out things. Follow those. That's when your inspired action is speaking to you. And your dreams are yours to create. It's Dan RadioStyle.